So did you ever have the experience where you went and you got your hair cut, your hair done, your hair colored, whatever? It was a great experience and it all came out wonderful and it grew out great. And then you went back next time to the same person and things were kind of off and it didn't grow out the same way, and you were like, what happened? She cut it the same way, I went to the same person. What happened? What changed? Does it have something to do with astrology? Does it have something to do with timing? How does timing play into things astrologically, psychically, and in dealing with the tarot? And is that the most important thing that you can be concerned about? Or is it something else? Coming up right after this. Good afternoon, this is Lucky Links, and this is a very fascinating topic and one that every person who works as an astrologer, as a psychic, who works dealing with people and metaphysics gets this question all the time. When is it going to happen? Is there something to this? Is this important? I've done a video on this before, but it is really kind of a big topic, and I'd like to take a different point of view now. One from an astrologer, a Tibetan Bond, specifically astrologer's point of view. Now, depending upon what type of astrology that you do, people have different views of timing. In Western astrology, people look at progressed charts. They look at the transits. In Vedic astrology, they're very specifically about when is this marriage going to happen, when is this going to come into being, when are they going to have children, when is this job going to come through. I got the idea for talking about this because someone in our Tibetan Bond cosmology group, one of the cosmologers, actually asked this question about timing. And there are things that you can do specifically relating to timing when you know what the energies are to make things work in your favor. For example, the first example I gave about hair cutting. There are days specifically that are good for getting your hair cut according to ancient Tibetan Bond astrology, and we always follow those days now when we do, and it really makes a difference. We can say from experience, we have tested it, it makes a huge difference. That said, and I wanted to say this before I began, today, those of you who are watching it right now, the video that I made today, for the next 3 days, it's a burning day. That means astrologically, the day favors burning, which means destruction. It can mean cruelty. It can mean people's desires will be out of control. It can mean people may not feel satisfied, and it could mean things that can come tumbling down. So this is not necessarily a time to put your guard down, and it is not a time to let your desires run free. What this time actually favors is purification. That said, that is the tack we take in Tibetan Bond, and His Holiness Padma Gampo Rinpoche, when responding to the person who brought this question up about timing, she said, hey, in India, we Vedic astrologers are very good at timing and when something's going to happen, right? And His Holiness Padma Gampo Rinpoche said, well, hey, in Tibetan Bond, we're actually concerned with purifying karma or karmic habits. Karma means habitual patterns that for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime have limited us. Now, 2 videos ago, I did a video about something that was happening to my shoulder. It turned out to be a karmic pattern. One that, when I investigated deeper using astrology and cosmology, suggested something that had happened to me lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And when working with His Holiness Padma Gampo Rinpoche and doing very specific practices that he gave me, and some very specific things as a student, I not only learned where this habit was coming from, but it's been getting better and better and better, and I cannot tell you how much better it feels today. It's astonishing. So I've been working through these karmic habits, which is why we do astrology. Now, if I'd have just left it and not paid any attention to it, I think it would have been disastrous, because everything in the astrology and the cosmology that I was looking at suggested that I would not be able to move my arm, and it was going to get less and less and less. And it actually suggested that if I didn't tend to it this month, the month of the war horse, which by the way is almost over now, and I will be doing a video on the water sheep, which is next month. I'll be doing that this weekend, a prediction of what's coming for next month. But the cosmology actually said that if I didn't do anything, I would tear it. So it's actually gotten better. I've been doing what His Holiness said. I've been working through it with my cosmology, my Tibetan bond practices. I've been working to purify the habits, the lifetime habits that made this come about. And it's actually changing everything, which is wonderful, because when you're a student and you're working through these things, you not only get to learn, but you get to change habits, which, if you think about it, something that's happened lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, I would have had to suffer through it again, but now I'm actually figuring out how to work through it, so that I'm no longer experiencing what I've experienced like a hamster on a wheel over and over and over again. Now, this idea transfers into the whole subject of timing. Those of you who do tarot, you guys get this all the time. When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And sometimes the tarot tells you, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas about, when. Those of you who use Lenormand, a lot of people use the number system. Well, the number tells you that it's going to be 3 days. If it's, let's say it's the number 3 card, it's 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months. Some people look at the energy of what I've encouraged my students is to look at the energy. Is it a fast energy, like say the rider? Well, then it's probably going to happen quickly. Is it something like the snake? Well, it may happen. Something may happen, below the surface, or it may happen in the background, and you may not even recognize when it finally happens. If it's something slower, like say maybe it's the mice, there's a more slow energy. Maybe it means something's going to eat away at it for a long time. In tarot, people they do the same thing. They look at, well, it's a hangman, so it's going to be a delay, or it's the tower, it may happen fast. In astrology, though, and in Tibetan Bon astrology, I have learned something very powerful that I would like to share with you guys, which is the whole reason that I decided to do this video. While working through these things and while learning more deeply, because years and years ago I started this path saying I want to gain a deeper understanding. And as I continue as a student, that continues to be my goal, to gain a deeper understanding, to grow, and to move on this Tibetan Bond path towards enlightenment, hopefully. Some very interesting things came out. There were some very specific charts I did. Some were of clients, some were not of clients. I did some other things just because I wanted to learn. One of the things that I've noticed, one of the big questions you get in astrology is, when am I going to have children? When am I going to get married? When is this going to happen? When am I going to get a job? Well, there are certain conditions that can line up to make things happen that way more quickly. So maybe this is a good, like for example, this weekend is a weekend for burning. Well, might be a good weekend to start a fire. If you want to start a fire and you want to get it to go, that would be, that. So let's say that someone was doing conservation and they were doing a controlled burn. Well, it would probably be a good time to start a fire, but you'd have to be very, very careful if it was a controlled burn. If you were just trying to, say, remove some of the growth that had gotten out of control, you'd have to be very, very careful at this time, because the conditions favor a burn to take off. Okay, so the conditions would favor a certain outcome. But there are other things that I think that people need to consider when they're asking these questions that of all the years I've been doing this now, and I've been doing this for a very long time, there are things that people don't consider when they say, hey, when's that relationship going to come? When's that, when are the children going to come? When's this? For example, let's say in someone's birth chart, they have a specific configuration that suggests that the children are going to hate them. And I have seen this. I have specifically seen this in several people's charts. And I've seen it in people who want children, and I've seen it in people who have children. And people who have children whose children do not like them, and they have a very strong hateful relationship, there is a configuration that shows in their chart that their children are going to hate them. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you want children, if you're going to have children, then something in your karmic patterns suggests that not only are you going to have children that hate you, but probably this has been a pattern that's happened again and again and again. Like I said about the shoulder thing. lifetime after lifetime, you end up in a situation where your children hate you. Why? Because there is something that you're supposed to purify in your karmic habits that needs to happen first before you have children. So it's a case of what's more important. When am I going to have children? In which case, you may have children at this time, but they're going to hate you. Or do you want to work through this habitual pattern you have first before you go ahead and have children? It's the same thing with relationships, and this is a huge one with relationships. Now, I am not a big fan, and those of you who have been watching my station for a long time know that I am not a big fan of those people out there that try to convince people of this twin flame thing and that you're supposed to suffer in relationships. I think it's extremely cruel for people to tell other people that, for people to try to bind people to that, for people to tell people that they should continue to go back to abusive relationships, when in Tibetan Bon, we look at it this way. There are only two reasons that you incarnate in this very special place that we are in. One, you either made a wish to end suffering at one point, or two, you made a vow to reach enlightenment. Those are the only two reasons that you would incarnate in this space where we are. So to tell people that they are here to suffer in relationships just because, I think is an extremely cruel thing. So if in relationships, and I've seen this, and I've had clients come to me and they say, well, why can't I get in a relationship? And there is something in the chart that suggests that before they can ever get a relationship to happen, that something else must come into being, because that's specifically how their cosmology has organized it. But you have to do this, this, and this, and that you're almost holding relationships hostage from yourself to ensure that you do this first. In which case, you'd have to purify the karmic habit that's preventing you from having it. And then what happens is the individual who works on those inner things, it just sort of arises naturally, and then the possibility prevents itself. Now, in that case, what's more important? The timing of when will the relationship show up, in which case it's going to be another relationship where you repeat the same habit over and over and over again. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, where you're going to lose yourself to this person. It's going to be the same thing you've had before. Yeah, it's coming this summer, but you're going to have the same experience you've had before, and it's going to go down the road of this, 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 and this. And then there are other people who say, well, you're destined never to have it. Well, maybe there's something in between. Is there something that you have to develop in yourself, that you have to purify in yourself before this relationship thing can happen, before the children can happen? There are certain things that happen in a chart. You can see in someone's chart that if there's children, there's going to be abuse. The person that you're with may abuse them, or the children may grow up in a very horrible home relationship, in which case those things really need to be purified first. Otherwise, we're just being selfish. We're dragging other people into our garbage that we're supposed to be purifying. And in that case, it's probably their habitual pattern to end up in a situation like that as well. So in ending this whole subject, which I've kind of given a sort of 12-minute cursory view, I think it's important to ask these questions. Before you ask when, ask what will the quality of it be? Is there something that I need to take care of first? Is there a habitual karmic pattern that needs to be taken care of? Because these things can create a healthy dynamic so that that thing can come into being. And then it's not about when. It's about the conditions are set within you, within your life, within everything that's right, so that the thing happens naturally and happens in a way that you break a karmic habit. If you keep getting in relationships that are going bad over and over and over again, you keep having health problems again and again and again, if you keep having situations where there's problems with you and your children or problems with you and other people. I saw this once specifically with a client I had years ago. She had a job. She had a job as a waitress. She would get a job in a new restaurant, and every single time she would end up in a situation where a person there was at odds with her. They would fight. It would be horrible. She would hate her job. She would come home miserable. She'd quit the job, or she'd get fired, and then she'd get another job. Same kind of thing, and she'd meet the same exact person again and again and again and again and again. If you are having these experiences happening, chances are it's a habitual pattern. And then it's not a case of when am I going to get a job? When am I going to have kids? When am I going to fall in love? It's a case of, have you figured out yet that there's a habitual pattern that you came here specifically to break so that you can end the suffering, not continue to suffer like a hamster on a wheel, going round and round and round and round and round, and never knowing what the reason why is. I'm Lucky Links, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. If you would like to get a reading from me, a crystal mirror where I make this is just mind-blowing. And those clients of mine who've had it done can tell you it is a mind-blowing experience where I make a portal, draw up a portal of your life, look at the elements that are involved, and we look at what's going on. And then what can happen is I can actually employ specific bond processes to set things in motion, to start things changing, to help with the purification, to provide support, so you can gain deeper understanding of the situation, so you can end up in a better position in which to make the changes that you need to make. We can do that, or we can get your Tibetan astrology done. I can do your chart. I do have a backup. People are very patient. I'm very grateful for those of you who are patient. I am plugging away at these as quickly as I can. They're all done by hand. And most of them, unless people ask me specifically for a specific question relating to something, most of them I do as a fairy tale. For those of you who have been watching my daily posts, I've been doing those as a fairy tale. I think it's very important right now that we think of things in terms of story, because the human mind learns from story, and fairy tales actually mirror the same process that our human mind goes through when we change. If you'd like to get any of these services done, or just a regular basic reading with tarot, we can do that too, or cards or oracles. 779-302-8009, conjurehope@gmail.com, or 779-302-8009, or conjurehope@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of me. And then if you want to take a class on how to read the tarot, how to read Lenormand, how to read crystal ball, how to read Mexican Loteria, playing cards, I think that's all of them. Contact me same way, 779-302-8009, or conjurehope@gmail.com. Hey, if you have not subscribe and hit the little notification button. And if you know someone who would benefit from these videos, please feel free to share it. So remember, as you go through this weekend, which is challenging, it's going to be a challenging weekend for many. Watch your desire. Give yourself some breathing room. Make sure you stay hydrated, because it's a burning weekend. And remember, consider this. Is it a case of when it's going to happen, or is it a case of what can I do to myself first to make sure the quality of what I want to happen in my life is really stellar?